Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/ask Reddit by Planet Reddit. Camp counselors of Reddit. What's the strangest thing you've seen kids do? A kid I was on camp with got a tick on his N. He tried to drown it in methylated spirits, but it wasn't working. He tried to then light it on fire, but didn't do a thorough job in wiping out the spirits. I remember seeing a huge flame out the corner of my eye, followed by him screaming and manically slapping the fire on his D. Oh my, I'm sure he was quite ticked off. Singed all of his pubes too. Whoosh. Counselor of 5 years here. I had a super duper stealth pooper. Every morning we awoke to find a freshly dumped turd in the center of our cabin. No one would admit to it. All the kids seemed pretty normal that week and it was otherwise a great cabin. My co-counselor and I tried taking shifts staying up to figure out who it was. The phantom pooper remains a mystery to this day. It was you, wasn't it? Directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Ghost Turds. A stunning addition to M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong's repertoire. Featuring Nick Cage's Ghost Pooper. I was on night patrol at my camp. The counselors slept in different cabins and the kids slept alone. So we had one counselor patrolling the cabins. I was opening the doors to each to make sure they had all gone to sleep. Then in one cabin all the kids were sitting in a circle and a few were completely naked. One of the kids was a bit more physically mature than the others. They were all 8-10 years old. The more mature kid had some kind of liquid in his hand. He was also one of the naked ones. Each kid seemed to be taking turns poking the liquid that was in his hand. A few even poked it then licked their fingers. I can only behandum what that liquid was. I just slowly left. Kids form cults too easy. Can confirm. Source. Was once a kid in a cult. Were you a leader or a follower? Personally I think being a follower is more fun. But you make more money as the leader. Camp counselor for 2 summers. This one kid would wear sweatpants every day. Without prompt by the other kids he would put his arms through his footholes and then pull the waistband up over his head so he looked like some weird 2-legged torso. He would then proceed to run around like that chasing the other kids grabbing their ankles. They were terrified. For reference if you cannot visualize, youtube.com link. Haha, yes almost exactly. Only differences were that his hands were out the bottom, his head fully in the pants and that girl has dance moves. Imagine walking in on that. I used to work at a summer day camp run by our local zoo. It was kind of an educational, arts and crafts, meet the animal kind of thing. Anyway, during the 2-week block where I am stationed with the 7-9-year-olds, they would rotate you so you wouldn't get burned out on certain behaviors of certain age groups. I got stuck with the child from hell. He was 8 and a holy terror. He bullied the other campers, talked back, taunted the animals during zoo tours and hit sketched through things at camp counselors. One day, my ward from hell goes missing during craft time. One of the other counselors tells me he demanded to go to the restroom. She walked him across to the toilet, and he proceeded to lock himself in the stall and refused to come out. I'd had just enough crap from this kid. So I stormed into the restroom and pounded on the door and yelled you come out of that stall right now or I'm calling your mother. Kid throws open the door, runs straight into me, bear hugs my waist and starts sobbing hysterically, screaming please don't call mommy, please don't call mommy. During his breakdown, I notice he's wet his pants, probably why he decided to stay put in the stall. I tell him to stay there. I'm gonna get some wipes and some spare underoos shorts that we keep on hand for accidents. The look on this kid's face was indescribable, like I'd just threatened to kill everyone he ever loved or something. He let out a sob and screeched don't tell mommy I pottied on my clothes. I want dinner. I'm hungry. I don't want the belt instead of dinner. I hope that kiddo is okay, comma. I had a camper once that I had to call Child Protective Services for. During our training, they taught us all of the signs to look for that a child might be in a bad situation at home. This girl had them all. Food hoarding, always trying to get any attention, usually negative, random cuts bumps which she'd always change the story about, etc. Unfortunately CPS said they really couldn't do anything without proof. I asked the girl about her family and she never said anything. And they say not to ask them leading questions because, well, kids like to make stuff up. I know child welfare agencies have limited budgets, But if those are known warning signs, shouldn't it be worth looking into? You would hope so, but that's what they told me. I wrote a report, so at least if anyone contacts them about her in the future they will hopefully look into it more carefully. A girl came in wearing a collar and leash and walked around asking people to be her master. Yep, she was a weird one. S&M camp was always my favorite time. Ah, yes, those sweet, innocent days at Camp Zipper Crop will remain with me for the rest of my life. The leather working class, the time spent holding your breath under the lake water, the fun nicknames everyone got, and you certainly learn better knots than what they teach you in Boy Scouts. Look, it's my puppy brother. Double quote. Okay, this isn't fatal or sexual, just kind of weird. I had a camper that would catch lizards around the cabins. He would then proceed to make them bite his earlobes and nose until he had several lizards hanging from his head. Then he would run around and scare the girl campers. It was pretty strange. That's not strange. That's amazing. Today I learned I was strange. We had 2 changing cabins at my camp for kids to change into bathing suits and such before going swimming. The boys of the camp had a problem just going in and changing, and instead liked to spend ample amounts of time running around naked and screaming. So, we had to take shifts standing outside of the cabin making sure everyone was changing correctly. One day, I was sitting outside the cabin, making sure they were changing with a girl that I had liked at the time, when one of the kids came out of the cabin and told me he needed to talk to me, but he didn't want the girl to hear. So, he whispered in my ear, "Dylan is showing people his butthole." Now, I have to get up, walk into the changing cabin where all of the kids are standing naked in a semicircle around a kid who is bent over a chair spreading his behind cheeks and showing everyone his butthole. I didn't even know what to say, so I just left. You didn't do a very good job of making sure everyone was changing correctly. Sexuality was changed quite correctly at that moment. You could have said, "Dylan, stop showing off your butthole. We all got one." I worked a camp for a bit where we had a bunch of buffer activities that we did when kids got dropped off. While we set things up, and while we waited for the kids to get picked up, the most popular was our vast amount of Legos that we had, and the kids obviously took to making cars, spaceships, planes and the like. There was a choice few parts for the really cool stuff, and as such the kids eventually started fighting. No matter what punishments we tried they would not stop fighting over the Legos, so I took to drastic measures. The kids seemed to argue about who had the strongest looking Lego man. I then brought in a zombie Lego man who had a jetpack and a space helmet and all that. He became the invincible Lego space zombie. I told all the kids that he was the most powerful Lego man possible and they needed to listen to me and quiet down or the Lego zombie would get you. As always, there is one kid who immediately does the exact opposite of whatever was said, started yelling and running around with his Lego plane. I told him the Lego zombie had come for him and took his plane. Then I made the entire camp gather around in a circle and they got to watch as the Lego zombie showed them exactly what happened to their precious Legos if they misbehaved. I dropped the Legos from way up and let them smash on the floor. Then the kid who was misbehaving had to pick up his now shattered Lego creation as the pieces went all over the room. Too long didn't read I was worshipped by small children as a Lego death god. This is my favorite Reddit story. I've had a few memorable moments on night patrol, but this one is my favorite. One of the best parts was listening in on cabins to hear what they talked about when they thought no adults were around. One night, I was walking by a boys' cabin when I overheard one of the older campers describing anal sex to his cabin mates. Everyone in the cabin was dead silent, probably hanging on every word as this 13-year-old kid said, "Anal sex is a mixture of 4 things: pain, pleasure, confusion, and intensity. To this date the most accurate description of anal sex I have ever heard." I'm mostly concerned that a 13-year-old was so intimately familiar with anal sex. Maybe it was church camp. He was one of the oldest kids in the session and the younger boys really looked up to him. So part of me feels like he was just making shit up knowing that they would believe him no matter what he said. Still, so eerily accurate. Jesus. No sphincter? Shitty situation. We had a kid who shit his pants and hadn't learned to wipe. He was 8. My poor brother had to wipe for him. Bro, I've heard horror stories and seen my fair share, but the kid would have been sent home. Explanation. Don't read if you feel queasy about shit. I teach preschool and one of my kids was born without a sphincter. Basically when he was born the doctors had to just create a hole. But because he doesn't naturally have the muscles to control his BMs, his shit just flows freely. They've been constructing a sort of makeshift sphincter with extra muscle since he was born and he's about 3 now. I don't know about medicine, but I do know he's on a really strict diet. Most of his food is dehydrated. He even has special thickened water that has the consistency of runny glue. His diet helps solidify his shit so they come periodically rather than just running through him. I honestly don't know how this kid's mother sent him to camp without really specific dietary instructions. Poor guy. One incredibly socially awkward kid snuck into another dude's shower stall and helicoptered his wiener and backed the dude into a corner. Apparently soap flung from his Johnson into the other guy's eye. He then proceeded to poop in the shower, pick it up, and throw it away. I asked him why. He said his friend told him to. I'm glad this wasn't me. There would have been a helicopter fight. Plot twist. It wasn't soap. That plot twist that approaches Shyamalan levels of laziness. Revised plot twist. There was no soap, no shower, no helicopter, no camp. It turns out the kid invented this whole fantasy world to hide the fact that he sees dead people who were killed by trees in a village that seems like it's hundreds of years old but is actually a half mile off of Highway 40. Also, there are aliens who are for some reason allergic to water, and the nice old comic book collector turns out to be the villain. And that is how you twist a plot. Also, I forgot. The Last Airbender sucked. Not much of a twist on that one. The only twist was turning a wildly successful and beloved cartoon shot into a steaming pile of crap. My classmates would always brag about being counselors. Supposedly the summer camp they'd just go to hook up with the other counselors while the kids were out doing activities. It was like a sex summer camp for counselors from their very graphic descriptions. Camp staffer for 4 years. This is true. Camp staff teams are usually one big incestuous family. Yep, pretty much how it works at our camp too. I worked at a Catholic camp where you had to stay there for a week straight at the start without leaving to build solidarity among the staff. I threw a party at my parents' house. They were gone. After that weekend, counselors ended up having sex all over my parents' house. One couple even broke the sink off of the bathroom wall. Another couple was in the attic. We had pulled down stairs from the ceiling. And yet another was in the bathtub upstairs. I lost my virginity that night. Good times. Minus the sink. Did a lot of camp counseling a while back. Often worked with special needs groups. They were usually great to work with. But stories were inevitable. There was one camper who tried to leave his room all night and we had to help the door shut from the outside so he wouldn't leave. Eventually he gave up and went back to bed. Or so we thought. Checking in later, we realized he had disappeared. You see, there was an emergency exit to the cabin, but it was old enough that none of the alarms went off when it was triggered. He had gone out that way. We found him across camp in the kitchen in his underwear. There was also the kid who was in line at lunch one day and yelled "I Spider-Man" and proceeded to jump out the second story window. One of the other counselors caught him by the leg halfway out the window and dragged him back in. Too long didn't read midnight underwear escapades and window escapes. WTF, I just imagine some guy on the first floor eating his cereal nonchalantly with his hand out the window ready to catch him, and when he does he's like, yep, brings him in and proceeds with his cereal. You/shitty watercolor, you/shitty watercolor, you/shitty watercolor. If I recall, you have to do a dance to invoke an appearance. Drown. It's so weird. When I was a kid, I went to summer camps to have fun, not to accidentally die. LOL. No, I'm not laughing. That's a photographic representation of the kid drowning. This made me laugh more than it should have. Lol mom. So how was the camp, son? It was fun, but there was this stupid kid and he drowned. But all in all it was interesting. One of the kids at the summer camp I worked at was obsessed with pine trees. He used to carry branches and needles around with him. The pieces of pine trees he found would eventually take on their own personas. He would tell me this one looks like a young man wearing a hula skirt, and one day when I saw him on the playground he was putting the pine needles in his ears and told me, "These are my children and their house is on fire." I just slowly nodded and went to play with some other kids. I am completely picturing Ralph Wiggum. Oh god, that's going to be my son. Summer camp director for 12 years here. I could write a novel on the weird shit kids do, but one particular comes to mind. I had a little girl who basically grew up in the camp. Sweet as ever and incredibly intelligent. Since we do not provide lunch for the kids, it was a day camp. We would encourage the parents to pack a snack for their kids so they could eat something at the end of the day. This specific child used to bring bags of dry cat food as her snack. Good old crunchy Purina. She loved this shit and had absolutely no qualms with telling everyone how tasty it was to the disapproving glares of the other campers. Obviously, this was a concern of mine, so I inquired with her mother about her kid's interesting habit. Her response was a simple yes. She has loved eating it since she was really little. Absolutely no concern whatsoever. You may be thinking, who the yuck allows their kid to do that? Is there something else going on with the family? Abuse perhaps? No. Not one bit. And believe me, I looked into it. Too long didn't read. Little girl loves crunchy Purina cat chow as a snack. I used to get down on some alley cat in my day. Some for the kitties. Some for me. Some for the kitties. Some for me. I think that parents have to pick their battles. I probably ate several hundred milk bones and a couple pounds of cat dog food as a child. My mom said she gave up trying to stop me after confirming with the doctor that it wasn't harmful to my health. We feed out animals high quality, organic food. Parents have to save up the energy to fight things like making sure their kids don't go out in public naked, don't throw tantrums, etc. My cat won't even eat that stuff. Join our community Discord, link in description. Counselor here. Last year I saw a kid pick a turd out of their butt crack, mold it into a cube and then eat it. By the way, what? OP please deliver. PLS. A couple of years ago I had a child come out of the room naked, start running around, and yelling what the heck at the other students as if they were the ones doing something odd. On the playground there was a child who drowned a lizard in hand sanitizer, put in the sandbox, dug it out, and started throwing it against the wall. A student threw a stick into another kid's eye. A first grader who frequently shits his pants managed to get it all over the gym floor during a game of dodgeball. 8-year-olds were sliding notes into lockers such as "I'm watching you," or "I'm going to murder you tonight." An older student organized a lynch mob of kindergartners to start punching, kicking another student and throw rocks at him. Children are little Hitlers. Also, they gave me my username. But that's a different story. Edit. Delivered. But in the wrong place. In the comments to this comment. I'll fix at some point when I have access to a computer. I want to hear the story of the username. Today I learned no one knows how to spell counselor. One of the younger kid at the camp I worked at, around 5-6, complained that he had to go to the bathroom otherwise he was gonna go in his pants. So I brought him to the bathroom and he comes out about 5 minutes later all sheepishly. I asked what was wrong and it turns out he was in such a rush to go he forgot to take his pants off, sat on the toilet, and just shit right into his pants. That kid needs to play the Flash game Don't Shit Your Pants. It's a long list. Working camps with a large group of kids invariably leads to some strange happenings. But here are the highlights. Pirate themed year. Searching for treasure on the hike. With all my kids guessing what it'll be. One suggests BHSB, what buried neath the soil. Pirate themed year. One of my kids unzips his tracksuit type thing on a hot day, exposing his bare chest. Another of my kids decided to tell him, "Hey kid, if a mosquito bites your PPS, they'll get big. If they get big, you'll turn into a girl." Space themed year. Kid dry humps me during a cheer where they're required to go chase after a counselor. Some odd shit. One year we had a group of campers, about 12 to 13 years old, gambling in the girls' washroom at a Girl Guide camp. Apparently the buy-in was $5. Canadian Girl Guides are bad behind. Though I was once a camp counselor, the weirdest story was of a girl at summer camp with me. We were probably 10. She told everyone her name was Cougar and howled at the moon every night. She also hung unused tampons from her bunk. Homegirl was nuts. Probably posts on Tumblr these days. Thanks to the lovely world of Xbox Live, all my 8-year-old kids learned lots of new words and sounds playing Call of Duty. One night on our camping trip, They, 8-year-old kids, thought it would be funny if they made all the noises of sex. They knew what a sounded like. They knew what sex sounded like. They used corny lines from O. They called each other prostitutes and S and names like that. I've never been happier about having grown up as a sheltered suburban kid than I was that night. Oh boy, modern kids sure are something. When I was 8, I thought V is a city in Kazakhstan. Very nice. High five. Why do parents buy a game rated M that is known to have a bunch of upwards for 8-year-olds? Some kid told me he going to hunt me down, wrap his N in a tortilla, make love to me, then steal my toaster. Good times. He's got his priorities straight. My dad was a counselor and one boy's parents insisted that he call their son the sir. One year we had to ban Duck Duck Goose because there were too many injuries. One kid didn't seem to understand the concept of a circle and ran straight into a wall. Full speed. I am a counselor at a camp and every day we raise and lower the flag on the parade field. Every day for a week there was a kid that would lean up against the fence, stick his hands down his pants and jerk it. Every day. Not just that. He would do it anywhere around camp. He was 16 or 17. That boy loved the flag. He raised the flag with us. A true patriot. One time I was lining all the kids up for snack time or something similar and we just couldn't find one kid. Despite the fact that I had just seen him. One kid points out feet sticking out from a picnic table. I crawl down to see if he's okay and ask him to join us. He looks at me earnestly and pensively and says I belong down here in the filth. Another kid had what were some obvious mental issues. This kid loved Scooby-Doo, but he had a very hard time separating reality from Scooby-Doo. I tried to get him to leave the bathroom but he looks at me with huge eyes and says I can't. The skeletons inside the wall in the hallway are laughing at me. They can't get me here. Don't we all have trouble separating reality and Scooby-Doo? Not a kid, but one of my friends came back to the cabin and found her co-worker, alone, outside the cabin, burning a number of the kids' socks in a metal bowl stranger than anything else I can recall. Trust me, it was probably for a good reason. Camp counselor for 5 years here. Kids do all sorts of act up shit. You'd be surprised by how many kids poop and pee their pants. They also seem fond of peeing on other campers' things. Here are 3 good examples of normal campers doing act up shit. I had a group of boys 4 or 5 who would play Mario Kart on their DS's. We eventually found out that the group had a rule that whoever lost the game would have to stick a broom handle up their butt. Interesting phone call home. Had a camper once who refused to go to the bathroom for an entire week. Right before bedtime he screamed my anus is on fire. Everyone thought he was trying to be funny. We found a huge, bloody turd in his shower basket in the morning. He denied it being his turd naturally. I had a camper who was obsessed with the question does peanut butter float? She would ask everyone and demanded to know your logic behind your answer of sink or float. But the kicker was she would do the experiment every single day at lunch and knew it sank. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.